Beasley, Jarrell Martin, Jamichael Green team up for the alley-oop. Textbook. Up, down.
The Grizzlies, that's a nice highlight. They also might not win again until next season. This is 18 losses in a row. They have perfected the tank. They are the tank.
That's one way to make the highlights, though.
Yes.
That's the only way to make the highlights. Kings, Thunder, dunk by Russell Westbrook. Triple-double night for him. Thunder won this game.
Russ, why so mad, bro? I mean, my goodness.
You took the words out of my mouth, man. He just plays so angry, and it makes me so happy.
Same game. Look at the feed from Russ this time.
You see? Go up and get it.
Boom.
There we go.
That's not easy.
No. It's a great pass. Is that Jeremy Grant going up to get it? Yeah, it is. Syracuse. Go get it.
Is he part of the great Grant family?
What?
Horace and
Harvey, I think he's, yes. The answer is yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure nephews, yes. They got the same great-granddaddy. And then from there, I'm not sure.
I don't know if you're expecting such a long answer. New topic here. Moving on to the NFC West because it's mid-March, so why not? Let's talk football. Former Seattle Seahawk Richard Sherman signed with the 49ers over the weekend. Now, one of the reasons he gave for doing so was to have the opportunity to play his old team twice a year. Who you calling old? The second reason was quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, who Sherman said, quote, was a huge part of the reason he wanted to play with the 49ers. Nick, I'll start with you. Are you buying all the hype surrounding Jimmy Garoppolo? Let's keep in mind how many games he did play last season. Good ones.
I mean, he played in 6. He started 5 for the San Francisco 49ers, and he obviously was undefeated in those 5. He played well. During those 5, he was top 6 in the NFL in a lot of important passing categories. I get all that. Am I buying all the hype? Well, I mean, if we're anointing him as a top 5 quarterback, no. If we're saying he could be a top 10 quarterback, possibly. Do I think they probably paid a little more than his production will warrant? Sure. But it doesn't really matter if I'm buying the hype, if free agents are. Like I said when they got Jimmy Garoppolo, that their ideal situation is to not play him so they could pay him less this offseason, because what they were going to pay him a ton no matter what. But if he had a great month like he did, they end up having to make him the highest paid player in the history of the league.
They were probably planning to do that if not for an injury.
They were planning to make him a high paid player. I don't know if it would have been the highest paid in the history of the league. But I maybe disregarded the potential benefits of him playing well, which are, yeah, you might have less salary cap space, but you all of a sudden might become a more attractive free agent destination. Because I believe when players are looking at teams to sign with, the first thing they look at is money. And money being equal, the next thing they look at is, do I have a chance to win? Well, maybe playing time is the next thing they look at, but if they're a starter, then do I have a chance to win? And do I have a chance to win is as closely correlated with do they have a quarterback as anything else in football. So I'm curious to see a team in San Francisco that desperately needs skill position players. Carlos Hyde's a free agent. I don't think Pierre Garçon's the #1 in this league. Like, they need to be able to attract quality players this offseason if other people are saying what Richard Sherman's saying, which is, I believe in this team partially because of the good-looking kid playing quarterback.
Yeah, I think Jimmy G is going to be a good quarterback. Also, that's to be one of the attractions to San Francisco. Let's not forget, this is a great franchise. Not in the recent history, but this is a great franchise. It's one of the marquee franchises in the National Football League. But it wasn't only just the franchise. It wasn't only the quarterback. But let's just say, benefit of the doubt, that he went to college in that area. So that would be attractive. What about being familiar with your opposition, that being the division he played in? He spent his whole career in Seattle. So they've played in the NFC West. So he knows the wide receivers for every team in that division. And as importantly, he knows the wide receivers on Seattle that he's been going against every day in practice. So I'm sure he goes into that decision with a lot of confidence. So, yes, it was partly the quarterback. Yes, and it is important to have a quarterback as a defensive player, but it's all these other things. Now, on the other side, Aqib Talib, he had a chance to go to San Francisco. He said he didn't want to go there. So before they got Richard Sherman, Talib turned him down, and he ended up accepting the deal to go to the Rams in the same division. So he thinks that the Rams have just as good a quarterback and a better opportunity. So Richard Sherman thinks it's the 49ers and Jimmy G, but there's other quality players out there who think in their division and other places in the NFL are just as good an opportunity.
I also wonder that if Aqib Talib hadn't signed with the Rams, if the Rams needed another corner, if Richard Sherman wouldn't have rather signed there. Like, where he's now saying there's a bit of a, I would imagine, Monday morning quarterbacking. This is where I picked. Let me now tell you the reasons I picked there.
I think the Rams and Wade Phillips, the style of defense they're going to play, they're going to play more man-to-man. So Richard coming off an Achilles, he not the best man-to-man for me. Pure player. Yeah. A better combination zone man player. So when you have Wade, who has history with Talib, I believe that right there, it helps get him to the Rams.
Going back to Jimmy G for a second, how much of this is because of where he was the last couple of years? If he came to San Francisco, won 5 games, and played okay, would we be anointing him, the next big thing had he not sat behind Tom Brady? I mean, does that sort of factor into all this for other free agent veterans as well?
Listen, every part, we don't have a ton of evidence in the Jimmy G story, but every piece of the evidence is a positive one for him. The team that drafted him, the person that drafted him, Bill Belichick, that's a check in his column. How he played in the very brief 7 quarters he played when Tom Brady was suspended a couple years ago.
Especially the time when he took over starting the season when Tom was suspended.
That's what
I think that was the most important time.
Yeah, those 7 quarters he played in New England, but when Tom was suspended, when they went 2-0 and when he looked really good, that's a check in his column. Whether it was misreported or not, the hype surrounding him, it's going to take 2 first-round picks. That's a check in his column. And then Kyle Shanahan, who people think of very highly, going and getting him, and a team that was, let's not forget, the Niners were, after Cleveland, in the discussion as the worst team in the NFL.
Yes.
And then they went 5-0. And everyone played better. As CeCe put it, the hot dogs tasted better. So we don't have an overwhelming sample size. But every little piece of evidence we have, to me, seems to indicate, yeah, like he is the real deal.
Look at last year's free agency. Mike Glennon going from Tampa Bay to Chicago. A lot of hype. Didn't live up to it. In this year's free agency, who would you rather have? Jimmy Garoppolo or Case Keenum? All right, who would you rather have? Jimmy Garoppolo
Don't make me choose.
or Kirk Cousins? Like, so when you talk about hype on quarterbacks, it goes with the position. So I believe that Jimmy had all these things, and he's young enough, hadn't taken a lot of hits, hadn't had a lot of bad experiences in the NFL, doesn't have bad tape out there. So I believe that even if they didn't play him, he would have still been one of the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks. So it was nice to see him play because that's what you want to do. When you trade for him, eventually, as soon as he can, you want him taking over that starting role.
All right, Case Keenum was the one big news today. There was another little thing we will talk about with regards to Drew Brees. He has a decision to make. We'll talk about that next on First Things First.
Come on, Drew. Stop playing, man. We kind of owe you a miracle anyway. So.